Think like a genius, live like a legend. Written and published by Rising Audiobook. Introduction. What if everything you've been taught about genius is wrong? What if genius is not a rare gift reserved for a lucky few, but a way of thinking that can be learned, practiced and developed by anyone, including you? Most people spend their lives believing that intelligence is fixed. They assume that the highly successful, innovative and extraordinary individuals of the world were simply born different. But history tells a different story. The world's greatest thinkers were not defined by what they knew, they were defined by how they thought. Every day, opportunities, solutions and possibilities exist all around us, yet while some people recognize them and transform their lives, others walk past them without ever noticing. The difference is not luck. It is not talent, it is a mindset. Your thoughts shape every aspect of your life. They influence your decisions, your habits, your confidence, your relationships, and ultimately, your future. Change the way you think, and you change the way you see the world. Change the way you see the world, and you change what becomes possible. In this audiobook, you will discover the mental tools, thinking patterns, and daily practices used by exceptional thinkers throughout history. You will learn how to question assumptions, think independently, develop creativity, master powerful mental models, and unlock the hidden potential that already exists within you. The genius you admire in others may be closer than you think. The journey begins now. Chapter 1. The Genius Within. Imagine for a moment that someone handed you a locked treasure chest and told you it contained one of the most valuable resources in the world. You would probably spend hours trying to find the key. You would search every corner, explore every possibility, and refuse to give up until the chest was opened. Yet most people go through life carrying something far more valuable without ever realizing it. They carry a remarkable mind filled with untapped potential, hidden abilities, and possibilities waiting to be discovered. From an early age, many of us are taught to believe that genius is something reserved for a select few. We hear stories about brilliant inventors, groundbreaking scientists, and extraordinary leaders, and we begin to assume they were born different. We imagine that they entered the world with gifts the rest of us never received. Over time, this belief quietly becomes part of our identity. We tell ourselves that we are either smart or not smart, talented or untalented, capable or incapable. But this belief is one of the greatest misconceptions ever created. The truth is that genius is not simply about having a high IQ or possessing exceptional natural talent. Genius is primarily about the way a person thinks, learns, adapts, and responds to challenges. It is a process rather than a trait. The people we admire for their brilliance often became extraordinary because they developed habits of thinking that allowed them to see beyond limitations and continue growing long after others stopped trying. Modern neuroscience has revealed something fascinating about the human brain. Your brain is not fixed. It is not permanently wired at birth. Instead, it possesses an incredible ability known as neuroplasticity, the capacity to change, adapt, and strengthen itself throughout life. Every new skill you learn, every problem you solve, every idea you explore, and every challenge you overcome creates new neural pathways within your brain. Think about that for a moment. The very organ responsible for your thinking is constantly reshaping itself based on how you use it. This means that growth is not limited by age, background, education, or past performance. Your brain is designed to evolve. It is built to learn. It is capable of becoming stronger, more creative, and more effective than it is today. This understanding changes everything. Many people spend years measuring themselves against others. They compare their intelligence, achievements, and abilities. They focus on where they fall short instead of recognizing what they could become. But genius-level thinking begins when you stop asking, "How smart am I?" and start asking, "How can I think better?" There is a profound difference between intelligence and genius-level thinking. Intelligence often refers to what you know or how quickly you can process information. Genius-level thinking, however, is about curiosity, persistence, adaptability, creativity, and perspective. It is the ability to approach problems from new angles. It is the willingness to question assumptions. It is the courage to continue learning when others believe they already know enough. Some of the most influential individuals in history were not necessarily the smartest people in every room. What set them apart was their determination to keep growing. They refused to let failure define them. They viewed mistakes as lessons rather than evidence of inadequacy. They understood that every setback contained information that could help them improve. The same potential exists within you. Perhaps there have been moments in your life when you surprised yourself. Maybe you learned a difficult skill you once thought impossible. Maybe you overcame a challenge that seemed overwhelming. Maybe you discovered strengths you never knew you possessed. Those moments were not accidents. They were glimpses of your hidden capacity. Too often, people underestimate themselves because they focus on their current limitations rather than their future possibilities. They see where they are and assume that is where they will always remain. But human beings are not static. We are works in progress. Every day presents an opportunity to expand our abilities, refine our thinking, and become more than we were yesterday. The hidden genius within you is not waiting for permission to emerge. It is already there, quietly waiting to be awakened. It reveals itself every time you choose growth over comfort, curiosity over certainty, and possibility over limitation. As you continue through this audiobook, remember one powerful truth. The goal is not to become someone else. The goal is to unlock the extraordinary potential that already exists within you. Because genius is not a destination reserved for a fortunate few. It is a path of continuous growth, and that path begins with the decision to believe that you are capable of far more than you have ever imagined. Chapter 2. Breaking Free from Average Thinking. Take a moment and think about how many decisions you made today. What you wore, what you ate, what you focused on, what you worried about, what you believed was possible for you, and what you assumed was out of reach. Now consider a deeper question. How many of those decisions were truly yours? Most people would like to believe they are thinking independently, yet much of human behavior is driven by invisible forces operating beneath conscious awareness. We inherit beliefs, absorb assumptions, adopt habits, and follow patterns long before we ever question them. Over time, these influences become so familiar that they feel like truth. They become the lens through which we see ourselves and the world. This is where average thinking begins. Average thinking is not a lack of intelligence. It is the tendency to accept limitations without examination. It is living according to beliefs that were never consciously chosen. It is allowing old assumptions to direct your future while remaining unaware that they are doing so. Many of the limits people experience are not physical barriers, they are mental barriers. They exist in the form of quiet inner statements repeated so often that they feel permanent. I'm not creative. I'm too old to start over. I'm not a natural leader. People like me don't become successful. These statements may seem harmless, but they possess tremendous power. Every belief influences behavior. Every behavior shapes results. When a person believes something is impossible, they often stop trying before they even begin. Consider a student who struggles with mathematics during childhood. After a few disappointing experiences, they begin telling themselves, "I'm just not good at math." At first, it is merely a reaction to difficulty, but over time it becomes part of their identity. Because they believe they are incapable, they avoid challenges involving numbers. They study less, practice less, and miss opportunities to improve. Years later, they still believe math is their weakness. The tragedy is that the belief became more limiting than the actual ability. The problem was never a lack of potential. The problem was a story that went unquestioned. This pattern extends far beyond academics. It influences careers, relationships, finances, health, and personal growth. People often become prisoners of narratives they did not consciously create. One of the most powerful influences on our thinking is social conditioning. From childhood, we are surrounded by messages about what is normal, acceptable, realistic, and possible. Parents, teachers, friends, media, and society all contribute to the formation of our worldview. While much of this guidance is valuable, some of it unintentionally creates boundaries around our potential. We learn what others expect. We learn which dreams are considered practical and which are considered unrealistic. We learn to seek approval, avoid criticism, and fit in with the crowd. Slowly, many people stop asking what they truly think and begin focusing on what everyone else thinks. The danger is not that society influences us. The danger is when we never question those influences. Great thinkers throughout history have possessed one trait in common. They were willing to challenge assumptions. They asked questions that others avoided. They examined ideas that most people accepted without thought. They understood that progress often begins where conformity ends. Breaking free from average thinking requires becoming aware of the unconscious mental habits that quietly shape everyday life. One of these habits is automatic negativity. The mind naturally notices risks, obstacles, and potential failures. While this instinct once helped humans survive, it can also prevent growth. When every opportunity is filtered through fear, possibilities disappear before they are explored. Another common habit is seeking comfort over growth. The familiar feels safe, even when it keeps us stuck. People often remain in situations they dislike, because uncertainty feels more frightening than dissatisfaction. Yet growth rarely occurs inside the boundaries of complete comfort. Perhaps the most limiting habit of all is thinking without awareness. Many thoughts pass through the mind every day without being examined. We assume they are true simply because they appear in our heads. But not every thought deserves belief. Not every fear deserves obedience. Not every assumption deserves acceptance. The path toward genius-level thinking begins when you pause and ask powerful questions. Is this belief actually true? Where did it come from? Is it helping me grow or keeping me small? What evidence supports it? What evidence challenges it? These questions create space between you and your conditioning. In that space, freedom begins. Intentional thinking is the opposite of default thinking. Default thinking reacts automatically. Intentional thinking chooses consciously. Default thinking follows old patterns. Intentional thinking creates new possibilities. Default thinking accepts limitations. Intentional thinking challenges them. The moment you begin examining your beliefs rather than blindly following them, you reclaim control over your future. You stop living according to inherited assumptions and start living according to conscious decisions. Breaking free from average thinking is not about becoming rebellious for its own sake. It is about becoming aware. It is about recognizing that many of the walls surrounding your potential were built by thoughts, not reality. And if a thought helped build those walls, a new thought can begin tearing them down. The genius within you does not emerge by accepting every belief you have ever been given. It emerges when you have the courage to question them, replace them, and create a new way of thinking, one deliberate choice at a time. Chapter 3. Curiosity, the foundation of genius. A child looks up at the night sky and asks, "Why do the stars shine?" Another asks, "Why is the ocean blue?" A third wonders, what would happen if humans could fly? As children, we are naturally curious. We explore, question, experiment, and imagine. We are fascinated by the unknown. Yet somewhere along the journey into adulthood, many people lose that sense of wonder. They stop asking questions. They become more interested in appearing knowledgeable than in learning something new. The mystery of life slowly gets replaced by certainty, routine, and assumption. But genius begins where certainty ends. At the heart of every great discovery, invention, and breakthrough lies a simple force: curiosity. Not superior intelligence, not extraordinary talent. Curiosity, the desire to know more, the willingness to ask questions others ignore, the courage to explore beyond what is familiar. The most remarkable thinkers throughout history shared a common habit. They did not merely seek answers, they sought better questions. Most people focus on finding quick solutions. They want immediate certainty. They ask, "How do I fix this?" or what is the right answer. While there is nothing wrong with seeking answers, great thinkers understand that the quality of an answer depends on the quality of the question that created it. A powerful question opens doors that were previously invisible. It challenges assumptions. It reveals possibilities. It forces the mind to explore new territory. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" a curious thinker asks, "What can this teach me?" Instead of asking, "Can I do this?" they ask, "How could I learn to do this?" Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" they ask, "What might happen if I succeed?" Notice how different those questions feel. One narrows possibility, the other expands it. Curiosity is not simply about gathering information. It is about developing a mindset that remains open to growth. It is about recognizing that no matter how much you know, there is always more to discover. One of the greatest obstacles to curiosity is the illusion of knowing. The moment we believe we already understand everything about a subject, we stop exploring it. We stop observing. We stop learning. Growth comes to a halt. The most successful people rarely see themselves as experts who have arrived at the final destination. Instead, they see themselves as lifelong students. They remain fascinated by ideas, experiences, and perspectives that challenge their current understanding. This mindset creates a remarkable advantage. While others become trapped by what they already know, curious individuals continuously expand what they are capable of knowing. Consider the story of the Wright brothers. During their time, many intelligent and respected individuals believed human flight was impossible. The idea seemed unrealistic, even absurd. Most people accepted this conclusion and moved on. But the Wright brothers remained curious. Instead of accepting the prevailing belief, they asked a different question: what if human flight is possible? That single question changed history. Curiosity gave them the courage to investigate, experiment, fail repeatedly, learn from mistakes, and continue searching for answers. They were not driven by certainty, they were driven by wonder. This is one of curiosity's greatest gifts. It transforms obstacles into opportunities for exploration. When something does not work, curiosity asks why. When something seems impossible, curiosity asks what is missing. When something appears ordinary, curiosity looks deeper. Many of life's most valuable lessons are hidden inside everyday experiences, yet most people overlook them because they are moving too fast to notice. A curious person treats life itself as a classroom. A difficult conversation becomes an opportunity to understand human behavior. A mistake becomes an opportunity to gain wisdom. A setback becomes an opportunity to develop resilience. A success becomes an opportunity to discover what worked. The world constantly offers lessons, but only curious minds are prepared to receive them. Another important aspect of curiosity is the willingness to challenge accepted truths. This does not mean rejecting every idea simply because it is popular. It means refusing to accept something blindly. It means examining assumptions rather than inheriting them. Many beliefs that seem obvious today were once considered impossible. Throughout history, progress has often come from people willing to question what everyone else accepted as fact. Curious thinkers understand that today's certainty may become tomorrow's misconception. They remain flexible. They remain open. They understand that growth requires humility. Humility and curiosity are deeply connected. The more you acknowledge what you do not know, the more eager you become to learn. And the more you learn, the more you realize how much remains unexplored. This creates a beautiful cycle of continuous growth. As you move through life, remember that genius is not defined by having all the answers. In many ways, it is defined by never losing the desire to ask questions. It is the willingness to remain fascinated by the world even when others have stopped paying attention. The hidden genius within you awakens each time you choose curiosity over assumption, exploration over certainty, and learning over complacency. Because every breakthrough begins with a question. Every discovery begins with a question. Every transformation begins with a question. And perhaps the most important question you can ask yourself is this: what might become possible if I never stop learning? Chapter 4. Seeing what others miss. Picture yourself walking down the same street you have traveled hundreds of times before. The buildings are familiar, the sounds blend into the background. The people passing by barely register in your awareness. You know this place so well that you hardly notice it anymore. Then imagine that someone beside you suddenly points out a detail you have never seen, a hidden piece of architecture, a small business opportunity, a pattern in human behavior, or a simple solution to a problem that has been right in front of you all along. The street did not change. What changed was attention. One of the most remarkable abilities of genius-level thinkers is not that they see a different world, it is that they see the same world differently. They notice what others overlook. They recognize patterns hidden beneath the surface. They connect ideas that appear unrelated. They pay attention to details that most people dismiss as ordinary. In many ways, genius begins with observation. Most people move through life on autopilot. Their minds are occupied with worries about the future, regrets about the past, endless distractions, and constant mental noise. As a result, they often miss the valuable information surrounding them every day. Opportunities pass unnoticed. Lessons remain unlearned. Insights remain hidden. The challenge is not that opportunities are rare. The challenge is that awareness is rare. Think about how often people look without truly seeing. They hear without truly listening. They experience without truly paying attention. Their eyes may be open, but their minds are elsewhere. Great thinkers develop a different relationship with the world. They become students of observation. They understand that reality is constantly providing clues, patterns, and information to anyone willing to notice. One of the most famous examples of this principle involves Isaac Newton. According to the well-known story, Newton observed an apple falling from a tree. Of course, countless people had seen apples fall before him. There was nothing extraordinary about the event itself. What was extraordinary was the question that followed. Instead of accepting the event as ordinary, Newton became curious about the forces behind it. He noticed something that others had witnessed but never deeply examined. His observation did not create gravity. Gravity had always existed. What changed was his willingness to pay attention and explore what others ignored. This lesson extends far beyond science. Many breakthroughs begin with simple observations that others dismiss as insignificant. An entrepreneur notices an unmet need in the marketplace. An artist notices beauty in unexpected places. A leader notices patterns in human behavior. An inventor notices inefficiencies that everyone else has learned to tolerate. The difference is not intelligence alone. The difference is awareness. Observation is a skill, and like any skill, it can be developed. It begins by slowing down enough to notice what is happening around you and within you. The modern world encourages speed. We rush through conversations, tasks, and experiences. We consume information constantly, but rarely take the time to reflect on what we are seeing. Yet insight often emerges in moments of stillness. When you slow down, you begin noticing details that were previously invisible. You hear what people are really saying, rather than merely listening to their words. You recognize emotional patterns in yourself. You become aware of habits, opportunities, and connections that once escaped your attention. One of the most valuable forms of observation is recognizing patterns. Patterns exist everywhere. Human behavior follows patterns. Success follows patterns. Failure follows patterns. Relationships, habits, businesses, and even personal growth often reveal recurring themes. Most people focus on isolated events. Genius-level thinkers search for underlying patterns. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen once?" they ask, "What keeps happening repeatedly?" This shift in perspective allows them to identify causes rather than merely reacting to symptoms. It helps them predict outcomes, make better decisions, and solve problems more effectively. Another powerful aspect of observation is the ability to connect seemingly unrelated ideas. Many of history's greatest innovations emerged when someone noticed a connection that others failed to see. They borrowed concepts from one field and applied them to another. They looked beyond traditional boundaries and discovered unexpected relationships. This ability is available to anyone willing to pay attention. The more you observe, the more connections you begin to notice. The more connections you notice, the more creative and insightful your thinking becomes. Awareness also plays a crucial role in recognizing opportunities. Opportunities rarely arrive with announcements. They often appear disguised as challenges, inconveniences, unmet needs, or small moments of curiosity. Most people overlook them because they are focused on what is obvious rather than what is possible. A genius mindset looks beneath the surface. It asks, what am I not seeing? What opportunity exists here? What lesson is hidden in this experience? These questions train the mind to look beyond appearances and search for deeper meaning. As you continue developing your ability to think like a genius, remember that extraordinary insight often begins with ordinary observation. The world is constantly revealing information, opportunities, and lessons. The question is whether you are paying attention. The next breakthrough in your life may not come from discovering something entirely new. It may come from finally noticing something that has been there all along. Because genius is not always about seeing farther than everyone else. Sometimes it is simply about seeing more clearly. Chapter 5. The Power of Deep and Independent Thinking. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine standing in the middle of a crowded city square. Thousands of voices surround you. People are talking, arguing, advertising, persuading and competing for attention. Every direction pulls you toward a different opinion, a different belief, a different idea about how you should live your life. Now imagine trying to hear your own voice in the middle of that noise. For many people, this is exactly what modern life feels like. We live in an age of endless information but increasingly shallow thinking. We are constantly connected, constantly consuming, and constantly distracted. News updates arrive every minute. Social media feeds never end. Opinions flow endlessly from strangers, influencers, commentators, and experts. Yet, despite having access to more information than any generation before us, many people spend very little time thinking deeply about what they actually believe. The result is a mind that reacts rather than reflects. Deep thinking requires something that has become surprisingly rare: attention. Most people are so busy processing new information that they never fully process the information they already have. They move from one distraction to another, one notification to the next, one opinion to the next, without ever stopping long enough to examine what they think or why they think it. But genius-level thinking cannot thrive in constant mental noise. The greatest breakthroughs, insights, and decisions often emerge not from activity, but from reflection. They arise when the mind is given space to explore ideas without interruption. Deep thinking allows you to move beneath the surface of a problem and uncover truths that casual observation cannot reveal. Imagine dropping a stone into a lake. If the surface is constantly disturbed by waves, it becomes difficult to see what lies beneath. But when the water becomes still, clarity emerges. The same principle applies to the mind. A distracted mind sees only fragments. A focused mind sees depth. One of the most important aspects of deep thinking is learning to question rather than automatically accept. Many people inherit opinions from family, culture, social groups, or popular trends without ever examining them. They assume something must be true because many people believe it. However, popularity and truth are not the same thing. History is filled with examples of ideas that were widely accepted and completely wrong. Entire societies have embraced assumptions that later proved inaccurate. Progress often occurs because someone had the courage to ask, "What if everyone is mistaken?" This is where critical thinking becomes essential. Critical thinking is not about being negative or argumentative. It is about being thoughtful. It is the willingness to evaluate ideas based on evidence, reasoning, and understanding rather than emotion, habit, or social pressure. Instead of asking, "What does everyone believe?" critical thinkers ask, "What is true?" Instead of asking, "What is popular?" they ask, "What makes sense?" Instead of following opinions blindly, they investigate, analyze, and reflect. This process requires intellectual courage because independent thinking is rarely comfortable. Human beings naturally desire acceptance. We want to belong. We want approval. We want to feel connected to the people around us. As a result, many people silence their own thoughts when those thoughts differ from the crowd. They agree when they have doubts. They remain silent when they have questions. They follow paths that others expect, rather than paths they genuinely believe in. Over time, this creates an invisible prison. A person may appear successful on the outside, while feeling disconnected from their own values and convictions on the inside. Independent thinking begins when you give yourself permission to think for yourself. This does not mean rejecting every popular idea simply because it is popular. It means evaluating ideas honestly and arriving at conclusions based on your own understanding. It means having the confidence to stand apart when necessary and the humility to change your mind when new evidence appears. The strongest thinkers are not stubborn. They are open-minded but discerning. They are willing to listen, learn, and adapt while maintaining the ability to think independently. One of the most powerful ways to strengthen this ability is through focused reflection. Reflection is where information becomes wisdom. It is where experience becomes understanding. Without reflection, knowledge often remains shallow and disconnected. Think about how rarely most people spend time alone with their thoughts. Silence has become uncomfortable. Many people immediately reach for a phone, a screen, or a distraction whenever a quiet moment appears. Yet silence is often where insight lives. Some of the most influential thinkers, leaders, inventors, and creators throughout history intentionally created space for solitude. They walked, journaled, reflected, and spent time thinking deeply. They understood that breakthroughs rarely emerge from a mind that is constantly occupied. When you create space for reflection, you begin to notice connections that were previously invisible. Problems become clearer, decisions become wiser, ideas become stronger. Most importantly, you begin hearing your own voice again. The ability to think deeply and independently is one of the greatest advantages you can develop in a world designed to capture and control your attention. It allows you to move beyond surface-level reactions and discover deeper truths about yourself and the world around you. Because genius is not simply about having more information than everyone else. It is about having the courage to pause, reflect, question, and think for yourself. And in a world filled with noise, that ability is becoming more valuable than ever. Chapter 6. Thinking Beyond the Obvious. If you had been alive hundreds of years ago, and someone told you that one day human beings would carry devices in their pockets that could instantly connect them to almost anyone on Earth, provide access to vast libraries of knowledge, navigate unfamiliar cities, and allow face-to-face conversations across continents, you might have laughed at the idea, not because it was impossible, because it was unimaginable. Almost every breakthrough in human history was once dismissed as unrealistic, impractical, or absurd. The reason is simple. Most people see the world through the lens of what already exists. They think within familiar boundaries. They rely on accepted methods, proven solutions, and conventional assumptions. Yet genius often begins where conventional thinking ends. The human mind naturally seeks certainty. It prefers familiar answers because familiar answers feel safe. When faced with a challenge, most people instinctively search for solutions they have seen before. They rely on habits, routines, and established patterns. While this approach can be useful, it also creates limitations. If you only think the way you have always thought, you will often arrive at the same conclusions and produce the same results. The individuals who transform industries, solve difficult problems, and create extraordinary opportunities possess a different mindset. They are willing to explore beyond the obvious. They are willing to entertain possibilities that others dismiss before they are fully considered. This is where creativity enters the picture. Many people misunderstand creativity. They assume it belongs exclusively to artists, musicians, writers, or designers. They imagine creativity as a rare talent reserved for a gifted few. In reality, creativity is far broader and far more practical. Creativity is the ability to see possibilities where others see limitations. It is the ability to generate alternatives when traditional solutions fail. It is the willingness to ask, what if there is another way? Whether you are leading a business, raising a family, building a career, improving your health, or pursuing a dream, creativity plays an essential role. Every meaningful challenge requires some degree of creative thinking, because life rarely unfolds according to a script. When conventional approaches stop working, creative thinking becomes necessary. One of the greatest obstacles to creativity is the fear of being wrong. Many people silence their imagination before it has a chance to develop because they are afraid their ideas will seem unrealistic, foolish, or impractical. They dismiss possibilities before exploring them. But imagination has always been the birthplace of progress. Every invention existed first as an idea. Every achievement existed first as a vision. Every transformation existed first as a possibility in someone's mind. Before something becomes reality, it must first become imaginable. This is why genius-level thinkers treat imagination as a practical tool rather than a childish escape. They understand that imagination allows them to mentally explore possibilities before they exist in the physical world. It enables them to test ideas, visualize outcomes, and discover opportunities hidden beyond current circumstances. When most people encounter a problem, they immediately focus on constraints. They think about why something cannot be done. Creative thinkers often begin from a different starting point. They ask what might be possible if those constraints did not exist. This shift may seem small, but it changes everything. A problem that once appeared impossible becomes a puzzle waiting to be solved. A limitation becomes a challenge rather than a verdict. A setback becomes an invitation to innovate. The power of thinking beyond the obvious also depends on your willingness to challenge assumptions. Assumptions are dangerous because they often operate invisibly. We accept them without questioning them. We assume things must be done a certain way because they have always been done that way. Yet history repeatedly shows that many assumptions are simply untested beliefs. At one time, people assumed businesses required physical storefronts to reach customers. At another time, people assumed transportation could never move faster than a horse. Throughout history, assumptions have disguised themselves as facts until someone challenged them. The ability to question assumptions opens the door to innovation. Whenever you encounter a problem, ask yourself, what assumptions am I making? What if those assumptions are wrong? What alternatives have I not yet considered? These questions train the mind to move beyond automatic thinking. Another powerful characteristic of genius-level thinkers is their ability to connect seemingly unrelated ideas. This may be one of the most overlooked forms of creativity. The world often appears divided into separate categories: science, business, psychology, art, technology, relationships. But reality is far more interconnected than it seems. Valuable insights frequently emerge when ideas from one area are applied to another. A scientist may learn from nature. An entrepreneur may learn from psychology. A teacher may learn from storytelling. An inventor may learn from observing animals. What appears unrelated on the surface may contain hidden connections beneath. The more knowledge you expose yourself to, the more opportunities you create for these connections to emerge. This is why curious and creative people often explore a wide range of interests. They understand that every experience adds new pieces to the puzzle. Eventually, ideas that once seemed disconnected begin to combine in unexpected ways. This process is not magic. It is a skill, and like any skill, it strengthens through practice. The next time you encounter a challenge, resist the temptation to settle for the first obvious solution. Pause, explore alternatives, ask unusual questions, imagine different possibilities, consider perspectives you have never considered before. Give your mind permission to wander beyond familiar territory, because the obvious path is not always the best path. The familiar answer is not always the right answer, and the limits you see today may be nothing more than assumptions waiting to be challenged. The hidden genius within you grows every time you dare to think differently, every time you explore an alternative, every time you refuse to accept that the first answer is the only answer. After all, the future is rarely created by people who simply accept the world as it is. It is created by those who imagine what it could become and then have the courage to pursue it. Chapter 7. Mastering Mental Models. Imagine being handed a map before entering a vast, unfamiliar city. The streets are complex, the pathways seem endless, and without guidance it would be easy to become lost. Yet with a reliable map in your hands, confusion begins to fade. You may not know every street, every building, or every destination, but you possess something just as valuable, a framework that helps you navigate. Life works in much the same way. Every day, we are faced with decisions, challenges, opportunities, and uncertainties. We must evaluate risks, solve problems, manage relationships, pursue goals, and make choices that shape our future. The difficulty is that reality is often far more complex than it appears. Information is incomplete. Circumstances change. Emotions influence judgment. The world rarely presents us with simple answers. This is why genius-level thinkers rely on something called mental models. A mental model is a framework for understanding how the world works. It is a way of simplifying complexity without ignoring reality. Mental models help us organize information, identify patterns, anticipate consequences, and make better decisions. Think of them as tools for thinking. Just as a carpenter uses different tools for different tasks, great thinkers use different mental models to approach different situations. They understand that no single perspective can fully explain the complexity of life. Instead, they learn to view problems through multiple lenses. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with decision-making is that they often rely on a single perspective. They become trapped inside one way of seeing the world. When that perspective is incomplete, their conclusions become incomplete as well. Imagine looking at a mountain from only one side. From that position, you may believe you understand the entire mountain, yet someone standing on the opposite side sees something completely different. Neither perspective is necessarily wrong, but neither tells the whole story. The same principle applies to thinking. Genius-level thinkers recognize that understanding grows when perspectives expand. They deliberately seek different angles, different viewpoints, and different ways of interpreting a situation. Rather than asking, "What do I think?" they often ask, "What am I missing?" This question alone can transform the quality of your decisions. One of the most powerful mental models involves understanding cause and effect. Many people focus only on immediate outcomes. They react to what is happening now without considering the chain of consequences that may follow. Great thinkers train themselves to look beyond the present moment. Before making a decision, they ask, "If I choose this path, what are the likely consequences tomorrow, next month, next year, 5 years from now?" This long-term perspective often reveals insights that short-term thinking misses. For example, skipping a workout may seem insignificant today. Saving a small amount of money may seem unimportant today. Reading a few pages of a book may seem insignificant today. But when viewed through the lens of cause and effect, these small actions compound over time and create dramatically different futures. Mental models help us see those hidden connections. Another valuable model involves first principles thinking. Most people solve problems by copying existing solutions. They look at what others have done and attempt to improve upon it. While this approach can be effective, it also limits creativity. First principles thinking takes a different route. Instead of asking, "How has this always been done?" it asks, "What are the fundamental truths of this situation?" By breaking problems down into their basic components, you create opportunities for innovation. You stop being limited by tradition and begin building solutions from the ground up. This kind of thinking has fueled some of the most significant breakthroughs in history because it allows people to challenge assumptions that others accept without question. However, mastering mental models is not only about gaining new perspectives. It is also about protecting yourself from common thinking errors. The human mind is extraordinary, but it is not perfect. We all possess cognitive biases, mental shortcuts that help us process information quickly, but can sometimes lead us astray. These biases influence our decisions without our awareness. One common bias is confirmation bias, the tendency to seek information that supports our existing beliefs while ignoring information that challenges them. We naturally prefer evidence that makes us feel correct. But growth requires the opposite. Growth requires the courage to consider that we may be mistaken. Great thinkers actively search for opposing viewpoints. They ask difficult questions. They challenge their own assumptions. They understand that protecting the truth is more important than protecting the ego. Another common error is emotional reasoning. We often assume that because we feel something strongly, it must be true. Fear convinces us danger is everywhere. Doubt convinces us we are incapable. Anxiety convinces us failure is inevitable. Yet feelings are not always facts. Mental models help create distance between emotion and judgment. They encourage thoughtful analysis rather than impulsive reaction. They remind us to evaluate situations based on reality rather than temporary emotional states. Perhaps the greatest advantage of mental models is that they help us think more clearly in a complicated world. They provide structure when life feels uncertain. They allow us to navigate complexity without becoming overwhelmed. The goal is not to memorize countless frameworks or become intellectually sophisticated for its own sake. The goal is to develop a more accurate understanding of reality. The better you understand reality, the better your decisions become, and better decisions create better outcomes. As you continue your journey toward genius-level thinking, remember that wisdom is not simply the accumulation of knowledge. Wisdom is knowing how to use knowledge effectively. It is seeing beyond appearances, recognizing patterns, understanding consequences, and approaching life with clarity rather than confusion. Mental models give you that clarity. They become the maps that help you navigate uncertainty, the lenses that reveal hidden insights, and the tools that transform information into understanding. Because genius is not about knowing everything. It is about learning how to think in ways that help you understand more. Chapter 8. Turning Failure into Fuel. Think back to a moment when something important did not go the way you hoped. Perhaps it was a dream that never materialized, a goal you worked hard for but failed to achieve, a business idea that collapsed, a relationship that ended, an opportunity that slipped through your fingers. Whatever it was, chances are the disappointment felt deeply personal. Failure has a way of doing that. It doesn't simply affect our plans, it often affects our identity. In those moments, it is easy to believe that failure is a verdict, a judgment, a final statement about who we are and what we are capable of becoming. But what if failure is not a verdict at all? What if it is information? This single shift in perspective has separated some of history's greatest thinkers, innovators, and achievers from everyone else. While most people view failure as evidence that they should stop, genius-level thinkers view it as evidence that they should learn. The event may be the same, but the interpretation is completely different. Most people are conditioned to fear failure from a young age. In school, mistakes are often associated with lower grades. In careers, mistakes can bring criticism. In life, mistakes can create embarrassment and discomfort. Over time, many people begin avoiding failure at all costs. Unfortunately, when you avoid failure, you also avoid growth. You avoid experimentation. You avoid discovery. You avoid the possibility of becoming more capable than you are today. The truth is that every meaningful achievement involves a trail of mistakes, setbacks, and disappointments that most people never see. We admire the finished result without witnessing the countless failed attempts that made it possible. One of the most famous examples is Thomas Edison and his work on the practical light bulb. While many people focus on the final invention, they overlook the years of experimentation that came before it. Edison reportedly tested thousands of unsuccessful approaches. Rather than viewing each failed attempt as proof of defeat, He treated every result as valuable information. Each experiment eliminated another possibility and moved him one step closer to success. This mindset is incredibly powerful. Failure only becomes permanent when learning stops. As long as you continue learning, adapting, and improving, every setback contains value. Imagine trying to solve a complex puzzle. Every incorrect piece teaches you where it does not belong. Although it may feel frustrating in the moment, each mistake narrows the search and increases your understanding of the solution. Life works in much the same way. Every unsuccessful attempt reveals information you did not possess before. Every setback teaches a lesson. Every challenge exposes a weakness that can be strengthened. Every obstacle develops skills that comfort never could. The problem is that many people focus so intensely on the pain of failure that they miss the lesson hidden inside it. When something goes wrong, they immediately ask, "Why did this happen to me?" A genius-level thinker asks a different question. What is this trying to teach me? That question transforms failure from an enemy into a teacher. This does not mean failure becomes enjoyable. Disappointment still hurts. Rejection still stings. Loss still creates emotional pain. Growth is not about pretending those feelings do not exist. It is about refusing to let those feelings define your future. Resilience is born in these moments. Resilience is not the absence of struggle. It is the ability to continue moving forward despite struggle. It is the decision to stand back up after being knocked down. It is the refusal to allow temporary setbacks to become permanent limitations. Every resilient person has a story filled with challenges. The confident individual you admire has faced self-doubt. The successful entrepreneur has faced failure. The accomplished athlete has experienced defeat. The respected leader has made mistakes. What separates them is not perfection, it is persistence. They developed the ability to recover, adapt, and continue. This ability becomes stronger every time it is exercised. Just as muscles grow through resistance, resilience grows through adversity. Another important lesson genius-level thinkers understand is the value of experimentation. Many people wait until they feel certain before taking action. They want guarantees. They want proof that everything will work perfectly before they begin. But certainty rarely exists. The most innovative thinkers approach life as a series of experiments. They test ideas, they gather information, they adjust their approach based on results. They understand that progress often comes through iteration rather than perfection. This mindset removes much of the fear surrounding failure. If an experiment does not produce the desired outcome, it has still produced useful information. Instead of asking whether something succeeded or failed, they ask what they learned. This subtle shift creates tremendous freedom. You become less afraid of mistakes, because mistakes are no longer evidence of inadequacy. They become part of the learning process. Feedback plays a critical role in this process as well. Most people resist feedback because it threatens their ego. They interpret criticism as a personal attack rather than valuable information. As a result, they miss opportunities for growth. Genius-level thinkers view feedback differently. They understand that feedback reveals blind spots. It highlights weaknesses that may otherwise remain hidden. It provides perspectives they cannot access on their own. This does not mean every piece of feedback is correct. Some feedback should be ignored. Some should be questioned. But wise thinkers remain open to learning from others because they know improvement requires awareness. The strongest individuals are not those who avoid criticism. They are those who learn from it without allowing it to define them. As you continue your journey toward genius-level thinking, remember that failure is not the opposite of success. More often than not, it is part of the path to success. Every setback contains information. Every mistake contains a lesson. Every disappointment contains an opportunity for growth. The question is whether you are willing to look for it. The hidden genius within you does not emerge because life becomes easy. It emerges because you learn how to respond when life becomes difficult. It emerges because you stop seeing failure as proof that you are incapable and start seeing it as evidence that you are learning. because every great achievement is built upon lessons that could only be learned through struggle. And sometimes the experience that feels like your greatest setback becomes the very thing that prepares you for your greatest breakthrough. Chapter 9. The Daily Habits of Extraordinary Minds. Imagine planting a seed in the ground. On the first day, nothing appears to happen. A week passes, and the soil looks almost unchanged. Even after several weeks, there may be little visible evidence that anything significant is taking place. Yet beneath the surface, roots are forming, strength is developing, growth is occurring in ways the eye cannot see. Then one day, the seed breaks through the soil. What seems like a sudden transformation is actually the result of countless small processes that have been happening quietly all along. The development of a genius-level mind follows the same principle. Most people admire extraordinary achievements while overlooking the ordinary habits that made those achievements possible. They see the successful entrepreneur, the influential leader, the brilliant inventor, or the creative visionary, and assume their results came from talent alone. What they rarely see are the daily disciplines, routines, and choices repeated consistently over months and years. Genius is rarely built in dramatic moments. More often, it is built in ordinary moments repeated with extraordinary consistency. One of the greatest misconceptions about personal growth is the belief that transformation requires massive action. In reality, lasting change is often the result of small actions performed consistently. Tiny improvements, repeated daily, create remarkable outcomes over time. A single page read today may seem insignificant. A few minutes of reflection may seem insignificant. A brief period of focused learning may seem insignificant. But when these actions accumulate day after day, month after month, year after year, they create a powerful compounding effect. This is why extraordinary thinkers place tremendous value on their daily habits. They understand that habits are not merely things they do. Habits eventually become who they are. Every habit is casting a vote for the person you are becoming. When you consistently choose learning, you become more knowledgeable. When you consistently choose discipline, you become more reliable. When you consistently choose focus, you become more effective. The quality of your future is often hidden inside the quality of your daily routines. One habit shared by many high achievers is intentional learning. They never assume that education ends when formal schooling ends. They understand that growth is a lifelong process. Many successful individuals dedicate time each day to reading, studying, listening, observing, and expanding their understanding of the world. They view knowledge as an investment rather than an expense. What makes this habit so powerful is its cumulative nature. Learning compounds. An idea gained today connects with an idea learned next week. That connection eventually combines with another insight months later. Over time, knowledge forms a network of understanding that becomes increasingly valuable. This is why many extraordinary thinkers carry notebooks, journals, or systems for capturing ideas. They recognize that information becomes far more valuable when it is organized, reflected upon, and revisited. Reading without reflection often leads to forgotten knowledge. Learning combined with reflection creates wisdom. Reflection itself is another habit that separates extraordinary minds from average ones. In a world filled with constant stimulation, many people rarely pause long enough to think about what they are learning, experiencing, or feeling. They move from one activity to the next without creating space for understanding. Yet reflection is where insight develops. A lesson becomes meaningful when you think about it. An experience becomes wisdom when you analyze it. A mistake becomes valuable when you learn from it. Many remarkable thinkers dedicate time to journaling, solitude, or quiet contemplation because they understand that clarity often emerges during moments of reflection. Another essential habit is focus. Focus has become increasingly rare in modern life. Distractions compete for attention every minute of the day. Notifications interrupt concentration. Endless streams of content pull the mind in multiple directions. As a result, many people spend their days busy without being productive. But genius-level performance requires depth. Depth requires focus, and focus requires intentional protection. The ability to concentrate on a meaningful task for an extended period is becoming one of the most valuable skills in the modern world. When you focus deeply, your thinking improves. Your creativity expands, your problem-solving abilities strengthen. More importantly, focused work allows you to produce results that scattered attention never can. This is why many high performers design their environment carefully. They eliminate unnecessary distractions. They create periods of uninterrupted work. They understand that attention is one of their most valuable resources. Where attention goes, life follows. Discipline is another cornerstone habit of extraordinary minds. Unfortunately, discipline is often misunderstood. Many people view it as punishment, restriction, or constant self-denial. In reality, discipline is a form of self-respect. Discipline means doing what is important, even when it is inconvenient. It means honoring commitments, even when motivation fades. It means staying aligned with long-term goals, rather than being controlled by short-term emotions. Motivation is valuable, but motivation is temporary. Discipline creates consistency, and consistency creates results. The extraordinary individuals we admire are not necessarily more motivated than everyone else. They have simply learned how to continue when motivation disappears. Perhaps one of the most overlooked habits of genius-level thinkers is their commitment to protecting the quality of their minds. Just as physical health requires proper nutrition, mental performance requires healthy mental input. The information you consume influences your thinking. The conversations you engage in influence your thinking. The environment you surround yourself with influences your thinking. Many people unknowingly fill their minds with negativity, distraction, fear, outrage, and mental clutter. Over time, this noise makes clear thinking more difficult. Extraordinary thinkers become selective about what they allow into their minds. They understand that every piece of information either strengthens or weakens the quality of their thinking. They choose inputs that educate, inspire, challenge, and expand their perspective. Most importantly, they understand that protecting mental clarity is not selfish, it is necessary. As you continue developing your ability to think like a genius, remember that transformation rarely happens overnight. It happens through daily choices, through repeated actions, through habits that gradually shape the way you think, learn, and live. The hidden genius within you does not emerge through occasional bursts of effort. It emerges through consistent practice. It emerges through disciplined learning. It emerges through focused attention. It emerges through daily habits repeated long enough to become part of who you are. Because in the end, extraordinary minds are not built by extraordinary days. They are built by ordinary days. Chapter 10. Transform your thinking. Transform your life. Imagine standing at the edge of a mountain just before sunrise. The landscape below is still covered in darkness. Roads, rivers, forests, and valleys are hidden from view. Then, slowly, the first rays of sunlight begin to appear. What was once unclear becomes visible. Paths emerge. Details reveal themselves. The terrain has not changed, but your ability to see it has. This is what happens when your thinking changes. The world itself may remain the same, but the way you experience it transforms completely. Throughout this audiobook, we have explored a powerful truth. Genius is not a fixed trait reserved for a fortunate few. It is a way of thinking. It is a collection of mental habits, perspectives, and behaviors that anyone can develop through intention, awareness, and consistent practice. The hidden genius within you was never something you needed to acquire. It was something you needed to uncover. Now the question becomes, what happens next? Knowledge alone does not transform lives. Understanding alone does not create change. Transformation occurs when insight becomes action, when awareness becomes behavior, and when new ways of thinking become new ways of living. This is where your real journey begins. Every chapter of this audiobook has been building toward a single realization. The quality of your life is deeply connected to the quality of your thinking. Your thoughts influence your decisions. Your decisions shape your actions. Your actions create your results, and your results ultimately determine the direction of your life. This chain reaction is constantly at work, whether you are aware of it or not. Many people spend years trying to change their circumstances without ever examining the thought patterns that created those circumstances. They focus on external outcomes while ignoring the internal processes driving them. They want different results while continuing to think in the same ways. But sustainable transformation rarely works that way. When thinking changes, decisions improve. When decisions improve, behaviors improve. When behaviors improve, outcomes improve. The transformation begins at the source. Think back to the lessons you have encountered throughout this journey. You discovered that genius is developed rather than inherited. You learned how limiting beliefs can quietly shape your reality, and how curiosity can unlock new possibilities. You explored the power of observation, independent thinking, creativity, mental models, resilience, and disciplined habits. These principles are not isolated ideas. They are interconnected. Curiosity leads to learning. Learning improves understanding. Understanding strengthens decision-making. Better decisions create better actions. Better actions create better results. Everything works together. This is why true growth is rarely about mastering one skill. It is about creating a way of life built upon intentional thinking. Intentional thinking means refusing to drift through life unconsciously. It means questioning assumptions instead of blindly accepting them. It means choosing growth instead of comfort. It means viewing challenges as opportunities to learn rather than reasons to quit. It means taking responsibility for the quality of your thoughts because you understand the power they possess. One of the most important steps in this process is creating a personal vision for your future. Without a vision, it is easy to become distracted by immediate concerns. Life begins to feel reactive rather than purposeful. Days blend into weeks, weeks blend into years. Opportunities pass unnoticed because there is no clear direction guiding your attention. A vision changes that. A meaningful vision gives your thinking a destination. It creates a reason to grow, learn, and improve. It helps you evaluate decisions according to the future you want to create, rather than the emotions you happen to feel today. Your vision does not need to be perfect. It does not need to contain every detail. It simply needs to be meaningful enough to inspire movement. Ask yourself, who do I want to become? Not what do I want to have. Not what do I want to achieve. Who do I want to become? What kind of thinker do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be? What values do you want to embody? What contribution do you want to make? These questions guide your growth far more effectively than external goals alone, because ultimately, success is not merely about accomplishing things. It is about becoming someone capable of accomplishing meaningful things. The most extraordinary lives are built intentionally. They are not accidents. The individuals who leave a lasting impact on the world rarely arrive at greatness through chance. They make conscious choices. They cultivate empowering habits. They refine their thinking. They take ownership of their development. In many ways, they become architects of their own future. An architect does not begin construction without a blueprint. They create a vision, make plans, and build carefully over time. Your life deserves the same level of intentionality. Every thought you entertain is a brick. Every decision you make is a brick. Every habit you repeat is a brick. Day by day, you are constructing the future you will eventually inhabit. The question is whether you are building consciously or unconsciously. One of the greatest gifts of genius-level thinking is the realization that you possess more influence over your future than you may have previously believed. You cannot control everything. You cannot eliminate uncertainty. You cannot guarantee outcomes, but you can control how you think. You can control how you respond. You can control what you learn, what you focus on, and what habits you cultivate. And those choices matter more than most people realize. Years from now, the life you experience will largely be shaped by the thoughts you repeatedly choose today. This truth is both humbling and empowering. Humbling because it reminds us of our responsibility. Empowering because it reminds us of our potential. As this audiobook comes to a close, remember that transformation is not a destination you reach once and never revisit. It is an ongoing process, a lifelong journey of learning, questioning, growing, and evolving. The hidden genius within you is not waiting for some perfect future moment to emerge. It emerges every time you choose curiosity over complacency, every time you choose courage over fear, every time you choose growth over limitation, every time you choose to think more intentionally than you did yesterday. Because when you transform your thinking, you do far more than change your mind. You change your decisions, you change your actions, you change your future, and ultimately, you transform your life. As we reach the end of this audiobook, it is worth returning to the most important truth you have discovered along the way. Genius is not something you are born with. It is something you build. It is built through curiosity when others stop asking questions. It is built through observation when others stop paying attention. It is built through deep thinking when others settle for quick answers. It is built through resilience when others give up. Most importantly, it is built through the daily habits and choices that gradually shape the way you see the world. The journey from ordinary to extraordinary does not begin with a dramatic breakthrough. It begins with a single thought, a new perspective, a decision to challenge a limiting belief, a willingness to learn, grow, and think differently than you did yesterday. Throughout this audiobook, you have explored the principles that extraordinary thinkers use to navigate life. But knowledge alone will not transform you. Transformation happens when these ideas move from understanding to action. The real power of this journey lies not in what you have heard, but in what you choose to do next. Remember that small improvements in thinking create extraordinary results over time. A better question can lead to a better decision. A better decision can lead to a better habit. A better habit can lead to a better future. What seems insignificant today can become life-changing when practiced consistently. So as you move forward, do not wait for the perfect moment. Do not wait until you feel completely ready. Start now. Think more intentionally. Stay curious. Challenge assumptions. Learn relentlessly. Embrace mistakes. Protect your focus. Continue growing. The person you become in the years ahead will be shaped by the thoughts you choose to cultivate today. You already possess the potential. You already possess the capacity to grow beyond your current limits. Now it is time to start living as the thinker you are capable of becoming. Your journey has not ended. It has only just begun.